What problems are troubling you? What's frustrating you, bothering you, worrying you? Want solutions? Want answers? Welcome to Here We Come to Save the Day, hosted by David Adelson. This podcast is dedicated to solving everyday and global problems in an uplifting, fun, enjoyable way. There is a solution to whatever's troubling you. Ask your questions and we'll do our best to give you practical, useful, workable solutions you can use starting today. Join us now with David's special guest experts who will share their own experiences, life lessons, and practical strategies for creating the life you long for. Start living your best life today, right now, with David Adelson and friends.
Welcome to another episode of Here We Come to Save the Day. I'm really excited today because we have with us Cami Baker, who's going to tell you amazing things that, and one of the things that I like about it, it's a lesson that my father taught me my whole life. So, and he was really good at what he did, which was sales and in radio. Cami, however, is going to tell us how to save the day in getting more dates, making more sales, getting more leads. Is this correct?
Yes, and learning how to ask the right questions.
I think that's crucial. So I'm very excited to have you here. I think the big thing is whatever we want in life, and from what you and I just talked about, whatever we want in life, there are ways that we can move forward to get it, and there are things that we can do that don't help us as much. And I think what Cami is going to present today, and correct me if I'm wrong, is ways that when we move forward, we're more likely to get it. Is that correct?
Well, yes. When you learn to ask questions and stop making statements, whether you want dates or more dinners with your friends or more leads or anything, questions move the conversation along.
I think that's brilliant. So let me tell you a little bit about who Cami is. She started selling when you were 5. Am I getting this right? Getting a 500, 8. Okay. It was a 500% profit selling gum to other kids, which is really good. Loan sharking, I'm not sure. Anyway, that money at a high interest and collateral at age 9. Fast forward 40 plus years, and her lead generating mindset has gotten her in business, from Home Magazine, hosting a TV show, being a radio personality, and speaking hundreds of times to audiences from 10 to 30,000 in attendance. Cami's primary focus is assisting real estate professionals to meet and mingle with their ideal clients, recruit top talent, and build brand awareness and loyalty through social responsibility. She says there are 3 specific skills that 95% of the real estate profession doesn't understand or leverage, and she's going to share those with us on today's show. So this is very exciting. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and to really focus in on the one aspect of asking questions. And I really honed in on this a couple of years ago when I was doing online dating. So even with all of the business and all of the networking, literally thousands of networking events, literally 6 in a day sometimes, and
wow.
All the tens of thousands of people I've met and business cards exchanged, I was doing online dating, and I mean doing it really intentionally, like literally swiping. When you swipe on online dating, you can swipe in less than a second. So you can swipe 100 times a minute. And if that's the case, you can literally swipe 6,000 times in an hour. And because of that, I know, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm just going to say it out loud, I swiped at least 1 million times. And when people make a statement, it stops the conversation. When you want to encourage conversation, you ask a question. And I got so frustrated in that the people that I was trying to communicate with just didn't know that. They would say, hi. Or the best question they could come up with was, how are you? So, I just started playing with it. Like, I remember one guy, it said on his profile that he was in sales. So I asked a question. I said, he said he was in business. So I asked the question, what do you do? And his one word back was sales. And I wrote back to him, I said, really? You're in sales? And the one thing you need to sell right now is you? And that's the best you got is a one word answer? So based on that experience, and then thinking about my business and lead generation and networking, I've always been able to kind of give really cool analogies and stories and examples back and forth of why dating and why marketing yourself in business are very, very similar. So when there are specific questions that we ask, we can set those dates, set those appointments, and make more money.
Yeah, I totally concur with that. As I said, my dad was always, talk to people, ask them questions. People love to talk about themselves. And if you ask questions, especially if you ask questions that they know the answer or that are about them, wow, that's interesting. How do you do that part of your job? What is it that would make that better? These kinds of questions, you can engage and move forward. Whereas just what you say, when you just make a statement, where do you go with that? So I'm sorry, I have to ask this because everybody's going to be curious. What happened with the dating? Did something ever come out of it, or where are you now?
I'm single, so dating is what it is. When you're in your 50s and dating again, the good news is you know what you want, and you know what you won't tolerate. And when you put out to the universe exactly what you're looking for, as my dating coach said to me, Cami, when you'll take anything and everything, you have a huge pool. But when you really get close and you know exactly what you want, your pool of prospects is very, very limited. So it's normal to not be doing a lot of dating and all that when you get really specific about what you're looking for. So even though I have had several boyfriends from dating online, I'm currently single.
And I understand how that works. I understand the flow of what you're looking for. And I'm not saying single or together is a better thing. And some people, like to do that. Have you found in dating that certain questions get you further faster? I mean, what's a good question that you ask aside from what are you doing or what do you do? What questions have you, coming out the gate, what's a great question for people to ask?
Well, regardless of dating or business, my philosophy is we don't want to ask yes or no questions. And if it's specifically about setting an appointment in business or setting a date, when we ask a question with two choices to help lead the person in the right direction, is better than an ambiguous question. So for example, if I met you at a networking event, if I were to send you a text or an email and say, hey, would you like to have a conversation? That's a yes or no question. Or if I were to say, when would you like to have a conversation? It's too big and broad, and some people get overwhelmed by, I'll handle that later. But if I say, you know what, I'd love to finish our conversation. I have time on Tuesday at 4 or Wednesday at 6, which is better for you. When you give people two choices, it gives them the option to say one or the other or something different. In other words, it's not so overwhelming. And so you could say, well, I'd love to talk some more. Are you better on phone or on Zoom? Or are you more available during the day or the evening? When you give them two choices, not only is it easier for them to answer, but when you think about the psychology of it, we think in loops. And when someone asks you a question like that, it's just like when we were in school and the teacher would ask us a question. We wanted to answer the question. We didn't want to look stupid. We wanted to finish that loop. And so when you give the person the opportunity to finish the loop, a lot of the times they will, whereas if it's a yes or no question that just kind of stops it, or if it's when would you like to go on a date, it's too big and it's too broad.
Okay, so that's a great tip. So the questions can be too open-ended. Well,
so for example, if I were doing the online dating or any kind of dating, and I don't want this show to be about dating, this is about people in general, but if I see someone's profile, I might ask a little bit more of an open-ended question in the beginning. Like, I'm not going to jump right on and say, hey, do you want to get married this week or next week? But it would be more like, hey, you have some really lovely photos on there. I see you were on an island. What island were you on? In other words, creating a conversation. I always look for questions that I can ask that will start a conversation. So even if I'm at like a networking event, so many people, 95% of people, all they can come up with is, hey, what do you do? 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 And so I'm always looking for different questions. One of my favorite questions to ask is, hey, tell me something about you that isn't about your work or where you're from. Now, that's not necessarily a question, but instead of saying, hey, what do you do or where are you from? When I say to people, tell me something about you that has nothing to do with your work or where you're from, here's what I see happen, David. We're on video for those who are listening. When you ask a question like that, people look up. They look up while they think because they're searching their brain subconsciously. And then you'll see them get this little grin because it gives them the opportunity to talk about something that they want to talk about. So it might be, gosh, well, my kids are in a school play this weekend and I'm helping to create a costume. Or, well, actually, I've started writing a book. Or I remember one event I went to and I was talking to this beautiful woman and I asked her, I said, what are you working on right now that you're passionate about? And she searched her mind and she said, well, actually, I'm starting my own clothing line. So if I had asked her, what do you do? She was a CPA. Very boring. Well, I'm a CPA. I'm a real estate agent. I'm an attorney. I'm a coach. But if you ask something that makes them think, the psychology of this is when they think of what they really love, they get a dopamine rush, they get endorphins, that thing that just made them smile and their face light up. They don't know consciously, but subconsciously you made them feel that way. Therefore, you are creating the bonding.
The other thing I like about that question, and a different version of it is just what are you passionate about, which is part of what you just said, is that most of us walk around, and I'll just, on the tip of our tongue, we have pre-prepared responses for 95% of everything we think we're going to get asked because we don't like to think. We're busy doing other things. So how are you? People practice elevator pitches. People practice these things. And when you ask, what are you passionate about? Or the way that you worded it, tell me something about yourself that isn't job related and isn't about where you're from. And they have to do this search. It allows them to get deeper and more intimate more quickly. And because you're telling them, I'm interested in you. I'm not interested in what you can do for me. I'm not interested in geography lesson. I'm interested in you.
Well, as Tony Robbins, he is known for dropping the F-bomb quite a bit when he's in his big live events. And he has said before that the reason he does that is because it jars people into state. Because to your point, we're basically walking around in a trance. What do you do? I am a realtor. What do you do? And so when you can ask a question that snaps them into reality, and gets them out of the status quo, and actually, you can almost see people play with this. You can almost, when you say, hey, what are you passionate about? You can almost see people kind of, it's like they just woke up or something because you're asking something they weren't expecting. And then to your point, when you said it shows that you're interested, I've got 7 specific reasons in a video as to why to ask questions. And one of the many reasons that you ask questions as opposed to making a statement is because it shows the person that you're interested in them, whether it's a date or whether it's a potential business associate or a friend. When you ask questions, it shows that you're interested. And people want to know not that you're interesting, but that you're interested in them.
I was talking to a potential client in sales or advertising, a long time ago, 20 years or whatever it was. And I knew what our team could do very well, and I wanted to find out what this person needed. So I just talked to him for like 20 minutes, and all I did was ask questions. And, what are you what are you looking for? Not just what are you looking for, what's your budget, but what does your company do? Tell me more about it. What are your long range objectives? What are your short range? And all of this. And he responded later that he really liked the fact that I did it that way. And I was like, well, what do I want to tell you everything that we can do for you if that's not what you're interested in? If you're looking for a blue house and my company sells little toy trains that are red, we've got nothing in common. We can, do other things, but by finding out about what was going on for him, it made it easier for me to present the aspects of the company. We did print, we did radio, we did all. If he wasn't interested in radio, he's interested in print. Is he interested in direct mail, whatever? So first you have to go through that whole thing. As I said, that was one of the things my dad taught me. But one of the and I loved that was, that he said that. It actually said, I love the way that all you did was ask questions and you never tried to sell me anything. But I have also learned, and I can't remember who told me this years ago, that if you ask someone a question that they know the answer to, they like you. But if you ask them a question that they don't know the answer to, they don't like you, which is a very interesting thing. What's your feeling about that? You find that happens, or the questions that you ask avoid that?
Well, there is certain psychology, and like when in sales, they say get the small yeses, 5, 6, 8, 10, 20 yeses before you get to the quote unquote close. So when you say, remind me again, you said you're moving to Florida. Yes, we're moving to Florida. To your point, obviously they know the answer to that and they're going to say yes, which leads you to the next yes, et cetera, et cetera. So there is something to that. And if you're asking a question that they don't know, people do not want to look bad. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like they're not in the know, especially the older they get, sometimes, especially the bigger the ego. So that probably is true, that when you ask them something they don't know, that there's some disconnect there. But, when you were sharing your story from about 20 years ago, it made me think of when I was in real estate. I was coached by a group called the Mike Ferry Organization, which is all about scripting and asking questions and keeping the focus on them. So often real estate agents come into a situation, they want to tell you how great they are, and they're going to tell you what they're going to do, and they tell. But I remember I had a closing, and I was standing in the kitchen of this couple's home. It was empty. We were doing the walkthrough, and we were headed to the closing. And I asked them, I said, I'm just curious, what was it that had you hire me? Because it was a quick, smooth, fast transaction. And they said, Cami, the reason we hired you when we were sitting at the dining room table, you asked us, you said, are you ready to do whatever it takes to get this property sold? And their answer was yes. And they said in that moment when I asked that question, they both realized, yeah, we are willing, ready, and able to do whatever it takes to get it sold. So asking that question and helping them move along the path is why they hired me. And so asking questions so that the person knows that you're interested, so that the questions lead you and them in the direction you want to go in. Now, of course, people could become very manipulative, and there's all the NLP and all that about manipulating people to go where you want them to. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, if I'm interacting with someone and I want to go on a date, but they, keep making statements like, wow, the weather's nice today. My favorite color is blue. Or just something that's not moving.
And you want to date this guy?
Well, my point is if I want the conversation to move in the direction I want it, then I'll simply ask a question. Hey, look, this is a great conversation. I would love to do it face to face. Are you available on Tuesday or Thursday better? At least now we're moving in the right direction. And if the person doesn't want to get together, in online dating, they just ghost and disappear. So I'd rather know that now. I'd rather know now that they're not interested than to keep texting and, just let me know now. So that's another reason to ask the questions, is that you move the conversation in the direction that you want and you get the results that you're looking for.
That sounds great. I want to move into lead generation. So lead generation is a whole big rigmarole. Tell me or if you don't mind, would you kindly tell me your ideal lead generation system? Do you just tell me anything you want to about it? That can help the audience?
Sure. So having been to thousands of networking events and spoken at hundreds of them and coached God knows untold amounts of people on networking and relationship building and appointments and lead generation, one of the best ways that I've learned to help people get out of their own way is to do what I call purpose leverage marketing. When you can leverage purpose in your marketing or your business development, how you show up. So for lead generation, if we are doing something from a place of contribution, now when we're at those events that we were talking about, if somebody does say the same boring "what do you do" question, now there's two different sides of this. If you're asking the questions, you want to get good at not asking the boring "what do you do" question and having more creative questions. On the flip side, you need to know that 90% of the people you meet are going to ask you, "What do you do? What do you do? What do you do?" That's all they can come up with. So what is going to be your response to that? So when we're doing purpose leverage marketing, when I'm working with someone on whatever their passion is, it gives them a way of talking about that. So if someone were to say, "Hey, what do you do?" My client might say something like, "Well, actually, I'm helping a firefighter's family. He passed away from cancer. We're doing a run down on the beach next month, and I'm helping them to raise awareness." So in other words, what do you do isn't, "I'm a financial service provider." He starts talking about what he's doing as opposed to "what do you do?" So when we can bring that into it, and the other thing about it is having a unique sales proposition. How can you show up differently than the 8 other realtors or the 12 other financial service providers? And also, as far as lead generation goes, instead of even going to a networking event, look, I wrote the book on networking. Mingle to Millions, the art and science of building business relationships, has to do with being more efficient and effective with networking. But if you want to lead generate, if you want to build your customer base, don't go to the networking events to do it. Go where your clients and customers are. So when I know who is your ideal client and what you're passionate about, we create a campaign that gets you out meeting thousands of them without going to networking events.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So how does that work? Do you have during this lockdown time that we're at, do you do it online with Zoom or something like that? Or how do you set this up? I mean, because now it's hard to go where the ideal clients are because, yeah. So,
well, one of the things that I've taught my clients is the power of Facebook Lives, which you can do at your business or you can do it from home. You can do it just like what we're doing right now. You can do it on a Zoom and do it live through Facebook. So, I might teach my client, "Hey, you're a real estate agent. You want to get in front of people who have young children. They own a home and they want to sell. And they want to sell what they got and they want to buy the next one. That's a great client for a real estate agent. What if you actually communicated with 10 businesses in the area that have those exact clients themselves? If that real estate agent's clients have young kids, so do the karate dojos, the dance studios, the orthodontist, the dentist, et cetera, the pediatricians. That real estate agent could actually do a campaign around a cause that they're passionate about, kids, especially in that scenario. And maybe they're doing some Zoom interviews of the local pediatrician talking about why they're part of this campaign to help kids with MS or St. Jude's or a local child that's just been diagnosed with something. In other words, leveraging something beautiful and purposeful in why you're having those conversations, do them live, and teach these businesses how to interact, mingle, and share these Facebook Lives together. It's a whole strategy. So instead of doing random activity, it's about having a strategy and leveraging your time.
Yeah, I like what you say about this whole thing about some service-oriented project to be involved in. I know, particularly for the younger generation, I'll just say under 30, that they are very socially conscious, and that you see that in a lot of packaging these days, or you hear them about marketing. The soap that we buy, the body soap that we buy now, has this whole big thing about how many bicycles they've given away, and how many people they've sent to school, and how much water they've purified, or whatever it is. And over here, there's another product that we get that has helped send kids to school. I mean, whatever it is, there's those products seem to have, that story seems to have a huge impact on people accepting them right now.
Well, here's the statistics around that, because there's what you're talking about is actually statistical. So right now, all things being equal, 50% of the marketplace are millennials, of the people who are working. By 2025, 75% of all the people in this country that have a job will be millennials. And the reason that's important is because 62% of them won't even work for you or your company if you're not on purpose, because they know they're not going to work for the same company for 30 years, get a gold watch, have the government take care of them, and retire. That's just not the plan anymore. And they don't want that anyway. So when you and your company are doing something extraordinary and community-centered, et cetera, you attract top talent, you keep them longer, and of course, the people that are out there consuming will want your product. So to your point, they have all this packaging. Well, here's the other statistic. If there are 2 real estate agents or 2 coaches or 2 dog walkers or whatever the profession is, 87% of consumers will choose the one that they know to be on purpose, the one that they know is helping the kids with the bicycles or saving the puppies or feeding the veterans. So not only is it the right thing to do for people and planet, but it's the right thing to do for profit. And now I've actually taken that to the whole next level, because having a history in real estate and being very creative with my marketing and branding, I have learned about the charitable gifting of real estate, and how when real estate is actually donated to nonprofits, how the real estate agent makes a higher commission, the property donor gets massive tax write-offs, and the nonprofits that can wrap their head around this can grow 100 times faster, because every year $400 billion is given to nonprofits. And Dave, less than 2% comes from real estate. Yet 43% of any person's wealth, 43% is in real estate. So in a time like right now with the pandemic, no matter if you make a $10,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $100 million a year, people want to hang on to that cash. They're not writing a check for $500 to the puppies like they used to. But when they can donate a property and save money on their taxes, now instead of the nonprofit going around begging or doing bake sales, will you buy a $5 raffle ticket? And look, all these events are closed. To your point, we don't have any events going on right now. We're not having fundraisers where people are coming together. But you know what we can do? We can all pick up the phone and talk to some people we know, have a property donated, and help that nonprofit make hundreds of thousands or millions instead of a $5 raffle ticket.
Huh, that's very cool. Are you doing that in some way? Are you aggressively?
Yes, aggressively, assertively doing it. So I have founded the Alliance for Charitable Gifting of Real Estate. And in the Alliance, we have all the moving pieces to facilitate these kinds of transactions. So nonprofits typically, if you were to say, hey, I got a house, would you like it? They're like, no, because they don't want to be property managers, or they don't know what to do with it, or they've never sold property, or it's just confused people do nothing. But when you have a group like ours that can facilitate that property, and when the real estate people in the area know that by giving property, they're not avoiding a commission, they're actually earning a higher commission, then they actually want to get involved in that as well. So whether you're a real estate agent who wants to make more money, whether you are a nonprofit that needs to grow and people don't have cash to give you anymore, or whether you're a property owner that has 1 extra property or 100 extra properties, it benefits everyone.
That's very exciting. If somebody wants to get in touch with you about that, how do they do that?
Well, Cami Baker is real, raw, relatable, and reachable. So Cami at camibaker.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm all over the place. And camibaker.com/free, we are creating a new gift, if you will, there that will give the 5 questions that you can ask your nonprofit or your real estate agent or the property owners that can start the conversation about the charitable gifting of real estate.
Well, good. I'm glad. And we'll have that in the show notes so people can just click on a link. Also, your email address will be there if you want it there. Good. So we'll do that. Also, as long as we're giving away free things, I want to take a moment and mention that we'd like to give away for those who would like it. So would you like more peace and harmony in your life? We'll ask the question, learning from the interviewee. Would you like more peace and harmony in your life? We have a free program that is a video that you just go to peaceandharmonydownload.com and click play. There's a little video that explains about it for those who are interested, but you don't need to. It's a quantum-based program that is completely silent, and it generates a pocket of peace around you. And we have bigger units that we sell that cover buildings or cities or even regions. So anybody who's interested in bringing peace and harmony to their region should contact us. And again, that's peaceandharmonydownload.com. Cami, I'm really enjoying this. What else would you like to let everyone know about today? We're kind of getting to the end, and I don't want to leave anything off that you would like to present.
I just really want to encourage people to think outside of the box. Don't get hung up in old ways, the ways it has always been done. I think about an old Southern story around a woman who she makes this really wonderful ham, best ham ever. And when she makes the ham, she cuts the ends off of the ham. And her husband says, you make the best ham, baby. Why do you cut the ends off the ham? She said, I don't know. It's just the way my mom always did it. So he asks the mother, your daughter, my wife, makes the most wonderful ham, but she always cuts the ends off of it. Why is that? And the mother says, I don't know. That's just how my mama did it. She always cut the ends off. So he goes and he asks the grandmother, why is your daughter and your granddaughter cutting the ends off the ham? She said, well, I cut the ends off the ham because my pan was too small.
Yes, I know.
So we get hung up in these old-fashioned ways of being. We don't even know why. It's the monkey see, monkey do with the whole thing back in the day when the scientists were having the monkeys and the monkeys. That's another whole story too. But
right.
Don't get hung up in old ways. Look for ways to grow and change. Just like with this whole charitable gifting of real estate, a lot of really strange misconceptions about it. But if you have a nonprofit and you find yourself doing the begging or bake sales, or if you're a real estate agent and a lot of people with real estate, but you find yourself always, begging for your commission and up against other agents to negotiate your commission, you can actually specialize in the charitable gifting of real estate and get the highest commission in town because it is such a specialty. And I'm actually certifying real estate agents to learn how to do exactly that. So really think outside of the box.
So I think that's great. We're getting to the end of the show, but if you're interested, I'd like to play a game with you for a minute, which is, let's come up with a whole bunch of questions to start a conversation with. So you came up with one already, which was, tell me something about again, it's not a question, but it's a question. Tell me something about yourself that's not work related or about where you're from. From that, we extrapolated, tell me what you're most passionate about. But I was thinking, now I'm thinking, and whether it's business or personal is going to determine the type of question you ask. One of the questions that comes up is, tell me the most exciting adventure you've ever had in your life. Another one is, have you ever stolen anything? So I'd like you to let's see if we can come up with 5 or 6 questions as conversation starters.
Well, you know, and it depends on the situation. But for example, you have a lovely logo behind you. And I taught people back in the day, if you go to expos and trade shows, one of the best ways to start a conversation is, oh, I love your logo. Are you a franchise or did you create that yourself? You know, oh, I love those colors. Did you pick those or did your wife pick those? You know, just questions like that get people thinking, wow, that's really lovely. How did that even come to be?
Okay, or I really love your colors. Is that somehow related to your message?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Or like on people's business card, another way that people really miss the boat, they exchange these business cards and they just put that card right in their pocket. But if you look at that card, people spend hours and days and weeks picking out the font and the colors and the design, you know, to look at that card and say, oh, I see you're from Marlboro. My last boyfriend was from Marlboro. Tell me about that blah, blah, blah that I heard about there. Or, oh, I see that your building is in the same area that da-da-da. In other words, if you look at their card, wow, this is great paper. Where did you get your cards from? I'd like to have some of these made. So just really focusing in on exactly what's in front of you. How can you, or one of my favorite is, girl, I love those shoes. Where'd you get those shoes? I was actually going to name my book, Girl, I Love Those Shoes. But if it's a guy, dude, I love that tie. That really matches your eyes. Or, wow, that suit looks great on you. Is that custom made?
Or, that's a lovely spider pin you have on. Where did you get that?
I have mentioned to people many times over the years, if you don't really know how to create conversation or ask questions, I'll tell them, what is that thing that you wear? Whether it's a nice pair of jeans, a pair of fancy shoes, a brooch, a certain hat. You know, some women are known for being the hat lady. Like, what is that thing that when you wear it, you get compliments all the time? If you know that spider brooch is going to get comments, then wear it whenever you go to an event where you want to create conversation, because you already know people are going to say, hey, I love that. It gives you an opportunity to say, oh, yeah, this is part of my brand, which it is.
So that's excellent. I want to ask you one more. It may turn into several more questions. This whole idea of asking questions, and you talked about going to networking or going to places where people are, don't a lot of people start out shy, or do you only work with people who have moved past that point? Or I guess the question is, if you're dealing with somebody who's just going to the event and they're new in the business, maybe they've just become a real estate agent or they've become a salesperson of advertising or whatever it is, they're new at what they're doing, and they're shy to move forward. How do you help them overcome that shyness?
Well, being the driver, AAA, outrageously out there personality that I am, I don't typically work with people who are really shy because we just are so far on opposite ends of the spectrum that frankly, I turn them off. And being a polarizing individual, I attract those that I'm here to serve and I repel those that I'm not. And we all are that way. I'm just really clear that I'm really that way. But for people who are shy, here's what I would say to them. Use that to your advantage. Never try to be what Cami's being or what David's being or what anybody else is being. Really use what you have to your advantage. So for people who are quiet and reserved, the fact is they're better networkers because they can listen. A lot of the times people who are blah, 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 extroverted and talky, they may talk a lot, but they're not listening. So they're not learning. And the fact is when my mouth is moving, I already know what my mouth is saying. I'm not learning anything. So when I can actually keep my mouth shut, as a matter of fact, I went to Sage Summit about 3 years ago and I saw Ashton Kutcher speak. There were 10,000 of us in the room and I see Ashton Kutcher up there and he's the guy from that 70s show, The Stoner, and he looks very young. And I thought, what's Ashton Kutcher doing here? Well, come to find out, he owns a little piece of about 600 companies. And he's really, really brilliant. And they said to him on the stage, how did you become successful with all these companies? And he said, I found my way into rooms with people that were way smarter than me, and I kept my mouth shut for a couple of years, listening until I had something intelligent to say.
So that's really good. So, and I love this idea of what you said is don't try to be a Cami or a David or whoever you are. And even David is not a David all the time, because I could be very like, yeah, what am I doing here? And what that means is if you are a shy person and going into a situation, you can actually go up to somebody and say, I'm really unsecure here. You look like you know what you're doing. Can you help me? That kind of question is, again, engaging and not stopping conversation, which I think is the key, is how do you continue the conversation going?
You know, it's funny. Life is a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't, go back and get some more what you really like. And there's a guy here in the Boston marketplace, Tom Maloney. He is the connector of Boston, very, very networking oriented. And he and I have shared the stage 3, 4, 5 times, physically on stages, et cetera, talking about networking. And he and I have completely opposite thoughts on this, and I'll share both of them for that shy person. First of all, I'm very introverted in a lot of ways. People think I'm very extroverted, but just like you, I'm on right now. I've got my makeup on, I've got my heels on, I've got my suit on.
Your brooch?
My brooch. I show up to shine. But I would just as soon, be sitting on the couch with a book or watching TV as much as the next person. But the way Tom and I are different in this way, my idea is, first of all, if you're really shy, what you really want to do is set intention before you even go. Set intention, pay attention, create retention. So when we set intention and we actually reach out and reach out, relationship build before we go to the event, introduce ourselves to the leader of the organization, to the speaker that's going to be there. If it's a meetup and you can see the 30 attendees on the side, reach out. When you actually create conversation with people before you get there, then when you get there, you can say, hey, I'm looking for Cami Baker. Oh, hey, Cami, we've been emailing back and forth. It's so nice to finally meet you. It's way better than just walking in cold. So I teach people how to do that as well. But for me, I want to go to the big dog in the room. I want to go shake hands with David. I want people that are coming in the door to know that I know the organizer. I'm hanging out with the leader. And it doesn't matter if we met 5 minutes ago or if we went to school together 5 years ago. People walking in see us communicating by association. That elevates me in the eyes of everyone else. So when I get there early and I say, hey, David, so glad you got this event going on. Can I help you put flyers on the seats? Can I help you sign people in? When I start that relationship with him as people are coming in, you're going to introduce me. Or, oh, hey, by the way, Bob, this is Cami. So if you go to the big dog in the room, by association, you are just elevated. Now, my friend Tom will tell you to do the opposite. What you just said, go to the person who's the quietest in the room and the shyest in the room, because maybe they have a better story than anyone and they're easy to approach. So 2 totally different ways of going about it. But either way, my friend, it's about human interaction. Human interaction. You can't go stand in the corner or stay at home and make things happen.
Yeah, 2 things about that. One is I remember listening to a tape in a sales organization once years ago, and they were talking about building your home business. And one of the things they said is people spend a lot of time organizing product on the shelf and cleaning the room and all of that. And he said, but the problem with that is how many potential clients are there in your home? Can you think of a nice round figure? You have to get out and go see people. And the other thing that I like is this whole idea of continuing the conversation, which I think is a lot of what we need to do in life. There was this movie that I saw several years ago called The First Time, and it's a real sweet movie about this, these 2 people in high school that meet and fall in love, and it's really fun watching the whole process of how they do this. And then they have, apparently they have sex and it doesn't go well, and then they're all kind of freaking out and think the whole thing's going to fall apart because it's the first time for both of them. So of course they're experts, everybody knows what they're doing then. But the guy comes back after the girl has already thought she's blown the whole thing. He comes back and he's in the driveway in the morning to meet her. And he just says, I just think I just would like to continue this conversation. As long as we continue the conversation, I think things will be all right. And I just love that idea of, he's not saying, let's get married, let's have a relationship, let's do a Disney princess. Let's just continue the conversation. And as long as we're continuing the conversation, I think everything will work out. I think it'll be fine. And it sounds like that's a wonderful way in business as well, as long as we're continuing the conversation, and then we can add the qualities of, using questions to do that. We can add the qualities of having a purpose, because people like to support something that's an organization that's doing something that's on purpose, whatever that purpose is. So you mentioned a dog walker, and if there's two dog walkers and one's purpose is to make sure the dogs have a great time and feel loved, and the other one's just a dog walker, you're right, everybody's going to go for the one. So I love these points that you've made. Any last key summary things?
Yes. On this note, especially with the shy folks, or even anyone, for me, it's about quality versus quantity for a lot of reasons. So instead of trying to get a card from 30 people, or instead of trying to communicate with way lots of people, stick to 3, just 3. Because to your point, if you're going to continue the conversation, if there's 30 people there and you don't really remember them, and you didn't really talk to that one, and I don't even remember what this card, I don't even know what he looks like, you got 30 of them, it's overwhelming, it's daunting, you're not going to stay in touch with them. Those cards are going to go from your desk to your pocket to the drawer, and nothing's ever going to happen with them. But if you focus on 3, and you have 3 nice conversations where you talk about your children, or you talk about, that you have cancer in common, or a college in common, or a cause in common, then when you do follow up and continue the conversation, you remember each other. There was a bond there. There's a reason to follow up. So quality versus quantity will help in all of that.
And I just want to emphasize that point, which I love, by the way, is this idea of, one of the things that I always learned is you go to the highest first. So this idea that who's putting on the event, who's leading the whatever it is, who's the big dog in the room, you go to, and then whoever seems to be the most, whether it's influential, or it may not even be influential, to whoever is most in line with what you're trying to accomplish. If you can create a conversation and continue it with those people, those are the people that can lead you where you want to be. Again, it's the idea of, do you want to sell 1 million of something for $1, or do you want to sell one thing for $1 million? They both will get you, but I love that idea of just 3. I will use that absolutely, because I have gone to many events where I do come home with a stack of cards, and if I don't do something within the first 3 days, you're right, you don't remember that all these things come up. So
let me leave you with the creed. David, put your hand on your heart. This is in the back of my book. I state your name.
State your name, David.
Solemnly swear.
Solemnly swear.
I will never, ever ask for another business card.
I will never, ever ask for another business card.
Unless I have full intention of following up.
Unless I have full intention of following up.
And I do it within 3 days.
And I do it within 3 days. So that sounds lovely. Thank you so much for being here today, Cami. I really appreciate it. I think there's a lot of useful information that you've given everybody. CamiBaker.com/free will get you to, is it an ebook, or what is it that they're going to get?
putting up the 5 questions, ironically, to the show, 5 questions that you can ask nonprofits, real estate people, or property owners that will get the conversation going about charitable gifting of real estate.
Yeah, and I think that's just a wonderful thing to be doing right now in the world. And I agree that's a do less and accomplish more kind of thing where you can, it's much easier to get a piece of property than it is to get 500 raffle tickets sold. So
True.
All right. Thank you so much, Cami. We'd love to have you back sometime, but we want to give it a while. But good luck with everything that you do. If there's anything we can do to support you, please let us know. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to another helpful, fun, and life-changing episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with David Adelson. To access the show notes and additional resources, go to herewecometosavetheday.com. If you've enjoyed the show and find it helpful and fun, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Tell us issues troubling you or questions you have. We're here to help you. That's what Here We Come to Save the Day is all about. Till next time.